The first house I ever lived in was my sorority house during my third year of college. I absolutely hated it. Not only was living with 13 other women a lot and kind of terrible, but I didn't feel like my quirks were appreciated by 75% of my housemates. Compare this to living in a small apartment townhome with my mom and grandma my entire life. I never questioned if I was cared for, supported, cherished, roasted, but also loved. That small apartment townhome was not a house by design, but it ultimately was a home. Someone who frequented this home was one of my sisters who's actually 20 years older than me, so essentially a third parent. And ever since I've been in elementary school, she had remarked that I was okay with myself and my being until I looked around and saw that I wasn't average. And looking back, I can totally understand why she would say that. I mean, I would look at the girls in my class who I wanted the approval and attention of, and they just seemed to be magnetic. They drew crowds of people in. I mean, no one was calling them an Oreo, someone who's white on the inside, black on the outside. No one was making fun of the size of their arms or their bellies. They had fathers in their lives, and they especially weren't drama queens. I looked at all these things that made me myself and decided that there needed to be something that was fixed. There was something wrong. I was weird. I didn't like it. And I decided that in order to counteract the things of my identity that I couldn't change, that I needed to counteract it with something normal. And in my mind, the way to be normal was to win the affection of boys. I had built this whole world in my head where I was weird and needed fixing, so I instead lost myself in the world of romantic comedies at the time. And I noticed a common theme from watching dozens upon dozens, and the theme was love. Your problems will be fixed once you fall in love. If you can't fall in love, there's something wrong with you. If you don't want love, there's something more wrong with you. And I looked and I saw that these leads, they were inspiring. At the end of the movie, they had so much individuality and so much newfound strength, but it was rarely without a man standing next to them at the end. And I took note of that. And these leads didn't represent me at all. I mean, a lot of them were conventionally beautiful. A lot of them came from nuclear families. They weren't battling feelings of romance for the girl in their class that was mean to them. And I saw this and I wanted so badly to be like them. And considering that I came from a line of hard-working single mothers who faced everything with so much strength, I was like, okay, I don't want to do difficult things. I want to do easy things. I want to fall in love. I want a fiance. And so I hit the ground running steadfast to get one. It didn't matter that I didn't like men. It didn't matter that I really hated every boy in my class. All that mattered was that I could get a fiance. I mean, boys weren't people anymore. They were goals, tasks, conquests, obstacles. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. I wasn't happy either, but I was going to get a fiance at the end. This is dehumanization, aka heteronormativity. It's this idea that men and women only serve the purpose to be romantically and sexually attracted to one another. Not only does this cause really screwed up gender politics and dynamics, it really erases the possibility of queer identities ever thriving and seeing that they're viable. I looked and I saw how heteronormativity was ruling my life, and I never had a chance to slow down from the race, stop running, and remember that I'm not even attracted to who I'm supposed to be attracted to because everything around me was erasing the possibility of a queer identity. Heteronormativity was coined in 1991 by Michael Warner, and it built off the term compulsive heterosexuality coined in 1980 by Adrienne Rich. Compulsive heterosexuality is when queer people convince themselves that they are straight because everything in society is telling them that they are. I was doing this pretty much every day of my life. These are narratives that queer folk have to fight in order to find what really makes them happy and what they want out of life. But these are also narratives that live on the screen. I mean, Kim Possible had ounces more chemistry with Shigo than she ever did Ron Stoppable. It's still a crime against humanity that Missy Pantone was given a twin brother and Bring It On so that Torrance Shipman could fall in love with him instead of her. And it didn't help that the queer representation I saw growing up was Ellen DeGeneres, if you didn't know. Or the bury your gays trope, which is when the queer character mysteriously disappears or dies. Coming out stories and queer narratives were regulated to the very special episodes, which meant that they were infrequent, and when they were on the screen, they were very serious. And you should be scared to come out because you should be apprehensive that the cis straight people in your life are going to accept you, are going to support you, are going to love you. It makes the whole process so terrifying. But if we took a second and stopped running this race of heteronormativity, we could remember that coming out, reframed as coming home, would inspire feelings of celebration. It would inspire feelings of nervous excitement. It would be joyous. Anne-Marie Fortier talks about the coming out story as an established genre of self-narrative and self-identification. It's this idea that you are coming out from heterosexuality and leaving this childhood home of something that you've been told your whole life and something that everyone is pressuring to you, and you're coming into your true home of queerness. It's this idea that you are leaving behind everything you ever known for something that is truly for you. But she takes it further and says the idea that the childhood home is the original default home turns the queer home into the other place, when for queer folks, it has always been the true place. I found that it wasn't about coming out from heterosexuality. It wasn't about defying straight people. It wasn't trying to fight heteronormativity, but it was really about coming into my own of my understanding of myself and who I was. But then I didn't know who I was. When I came out, I had so much anxiety about hanging out with longtime friends because I didn't know what the hell I was going to talk about. I mean, ever since I've been 12, I've made my personality dating boys. I mean, what I would do is 1 week, I'd pick a boy to have a crush on, he would reject me, and then the next week I'd pick another boy to have a crush on, and then he would also reject me. And that had been what I had been talking about literally for 12 years. I had to relearn so much about myself. I had to start seeing myself through a dynamic perspective, even though my friends and family had seen me that way all along. And I had to really reconcile with the fact that I was so much more than the girl that wanted a boyfriend, when in reality, I never even wanted a boyfriend at all. So I relearned all of these things, and I came to the conclusion that there's so many things about my personality that had given me annoyance that were actually wonderful. I was no longer scared to be seen as masculine in my behavior. I stopped asking friends if clothes made me look like a lesbian. And I'm here to tell you right now, if you're asking your friends if something makes you look like a lesbian because you're scared to be seen as a lesbian, you are probably a lesbian. I started unabashedly owning the fact that I love celebrity gossip and I casually like astrology. I fell in love with my bossy, boisterous personality, and ultimately I figured out that I do want marriage and children, not because it's something that I have to do, but because I want to spend the rest of my life with someone and build a family with them. I realized that all these things about me that I tried to change or suppress were actually so many wonderful things about me, and I felt so authentically myself. I'd stopped running this race to get a fiance that was a man, and instead I turned around and gone to my home that was truly meant for me. To bring up Fortier again, the idea of coming home is a process of re-remembering things that you had suppressed to fit into something that was never truly yours. I found that the ability to love others coincided with the ability to love myself. I found that through coming out, I was able to actually redefine what it meant to be home, what it meant to be authentic, and what it meant to experience happiness. I found that the first time I danced at a gay bar with my now partner, I felt so safe and comfortable, but so alive and electric, like I had painted the walls this magnetic color. You know, I was finally home. There were walls that needed more painting, and there was furniture that needed cleaning and dusting off, but it was mine. And who was I? Well, I am a big, Black, bipolar woman. I am an Aries sun, an Aquarius moon, and a Libra rising. I love celebrity gossip. My playlist ranges from Megan Thee Stallion to Casey Musgraves and everything in between. I'm a lover and a friend. I'm a lesbian. I am Alex Smith Scales, and I'm so happy and proud to be able to stand here and say that to you today. Thank you.